Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/malicious compliance, where people get revenge by doing exactly what they're told. If you enjoy, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and hit that notification bell. Now, let's get started, shall we? Make me stay late for not being 15 minutes early? I'll show you how early I can be. I work at a casino as a dealer. We have a first in first out way of scheduling dealers. So if you start at 7 p.m., you get to leave before people that started at 8 p.m. when they're able to close tables down and send you home. Pretty normal and straightforward. If more than one person starts at the same time, then whoever gets the option to leave first is assigned on a rotating basis. So if you have the first option one week, you'll be second the following, the third after that, then back to one. So one afternoon, I was reporting to work with two other dealers, all set to start at the same time. I was looking forward to a short evening, as I was the first option and had plans after work. I arrived 10 minutes before my shift and noticed one of the dealers who was starting off at that time was already dealing. They, the dealer, must have been in the EDR, and the pencil needed a dealer to start right away. I confirmed that they had started 15 minutes before their scheduled time, and they were the third option. Fast forward 6 hours, and we had tables before we could start closing. I'm stoked to get out of there when I look over and see the dealer that started early leaving before me. I pointed out that I was supposed to be leaving before her, and she just gave me a shit-eating grin and said,
Well, I started before you, so I have the first option.
and then she just walked off all smug. I was super pissed and said something to the supervisor. He shrugged me off and said, "It's policy." First to start leaves first? Okay, game on. I knew this coworker had kids and had to wait for her mom to come over to babysit before she could leave for work, so she wasn't always early for her shift. I have no kids or obligations, so I started showing up 2 entire hours before my shift and just started chilling in the EDR. I would let the supervisor know I was there in case they needed me to start early, which they always did, because they would not refuse to open a table for lack of staff knowing I was on property and available to work. 3 weeks of this, and I had held the first option on every shift I worked. The dealer who was all smug about starting early was getting frustrated and angry at me. Having to stay super late every night was wearing her down.
It would be nice to get off before close just once,
She said to me once as I was leaving early again. I told her I was just following policy and she was welcome to show up early to make sure she was always first out. 2 more weeks and many complaints to the boss later. The policy was changed. Now, in order to jump option numbers, you have to be called in over an hour before your scheduled time. 15 minutes wasn't going to cut it anymore if you wanted to leave early. I hope that it was worth it for her staying until near close for over a month over that 15 minutes. I am very petty and have a lot of free time. On to the next story. I won't get paid more for doing my job quickly? Alright, then I'll just do my job slower. I'm a software developer at a medium sized company where I would get a project and a time frame to get said project done. This time frame is insane, not because of the lack of time to get it done, but because of the excessive amount of time it would give me. Something I could get it done in 2 weeks is given 3 months to complete. My first 6 months at the company were spent with me doing said projects in the amount of time they took me, as opposed to the amount of time given for them to be completed. And when my performance review came back, I assumed my raise and bonus would reflect my performance. As many of you can probably guess from where I'm posting this story, my raise did not in fact reflect my performance, and instead was just the base amount my contract guaranteed. My response to this was not to complain, as frankly I didn't care, and instead just to stop submitting my progress at the same pace I had been doing it. I still did it the 2 weeks for 3 months, but it was just a work from home job, and I would just add in bits and pieces to keep the progress at the expected pace while having the completed project on a personal machine. I still work there, and I've been working there for 4 years now, and I've been very happy spending maybe 2 months of the year doing my job and the working my second job at a different business as a software developer, as it's work from home job and there are no mandatory check-ins or anything of the sort. I've been offered a decent raise to return to my original pace multiple times, but I've declined each time, and after around a year and half they accepted the current pace, I still do quality work with no delays. I guess don't shaft me originally and expect me to change my mind when you realize my value. No idea, I just make way more money than I would have needed to. Now effectively get triple my salary as my other job makes twice my lousy job.
Your reward for hard work? More work for the same pay.
That's basically how jobs work nowadays. There is no incentive. Anyway, on to the next story.
If I tell you to spray fairways, you spray fairways.
Well, no problems there, boss. My first job out of college, I was working on an assistant superintendent on a golf course. One of the most common jobs I was assigned was to spray pesticides on fairways, greens, and so on. One particular day, I was spraying fairways, and one of the crew guys who was on next hole needed help with their machine because it had broke down. So I stopped spraying and went over and helped him, and figure out what was wrong with the machine. My boss, the superintendent, came riding up on his golf cart and started absolutely blasting me for stopping, and told me that if my job is to spray fairways, that is the only thing I need to be worried about. So I got back on the spray rig and kept on spraying. 2 weeks later, the same exact scenario happened. I was spraying fairways and a crew guy needed help out in the course. I just kept spraying and ignored the crew guy. My boss was making his rounds on the golf cart and came over to me and started yelling at me, saying that if I see someone needs help, I need to be able to break off from what I'm doing and help that person. I'm a manager and that's my job, yada yada. Then he goes,
Do you understand me?
And I said, no I don't. 2 weeks ago I did exactly that, and you told me I need to keep spraying fairways if that is my task. He got all red in the face and drove off in his golf cart and came back like 30 minutes later and told me to just use my best judgment from now on if it looked like a crew guy needed help. This is one of those put it in writing moments. The boss gave contradictory orders and now has given a third order intended to make it all better. But I would bet that the next time when you use your judgment, he'll say,
I'm the boss, you do what I say.
He needs to put that order in writing, preferably in an email, so you can save it and refer it to him or anyone else back to that order when his panties get twisted again. Because his panties will get twisted again. Anyway, on to the next story. You better start making more sales. Back in the sun-soaked streets of Phoenix, Arizona, my 14-year-old self squints gleefully into the window of a greasy Chevy Impala, rolling down as slowly and choppily as OP's riding. It's time to sell some candy. I hop into my new favorite escape of my life, picking up cigarette butts for my father, rife with opportunity. My job was to sell boxes of cheap candy that my boss, Al, got from who knows where. We sold the candy door to door, an army of tweens driven around by someone triple their age. $5 to $6 a box was our price. $1 a box was our profit. Al got the rest. One weekend he drove us way away from our usual spot, thrust us into a walk-tee, a prominent neighborhood with lush houses. Al expected big things of us. The day was hot and grueling. The bright, shiny day quickly turned into a sweaty hellscape, ending in anger and disappointment of only selling 3 boxes. Al was furious. He picked us up from our drop-off locations and drove us to another neighborhood in Ewakti. He reamed us, insulted us, and accused us of not trying. The truth was, it was just brutal in every way. People were on vacation. The only people answering was the occasional hired help that didn't care. He demanded for us to
Start making way more sales.
enter malicious compliance. The next neighborhood he dropped us off in was about a quarter mile from the convenience store. We took the cash we had from the original sales and bought a bunch of cheap candies from the convenience store. We resold those dollar-thin mints at a significant markup. We kept the extra cash and occasionally sold 1 or 2 of his candies only because people saw them in our box of candies and chose those. Each of us had about $30 cash for ourselves, and 20 or so for Al. We made sales all right. Al just didn't know how much more. TLDR, we were told to sell more candy, and we sold our own. I did basically the same thing in high school. A popular fundraiser for extracurriculars was selling cheap candy bars for $1 each. I'm old, candy bars were normally maybe 50 cents. There was a grocery store not far from the high school. I'd walk over, buy 6 packs of real candy bars from brands people actually heard of, as in a 6-pack of Snickers would be about $2, resell them the same $1 per bar, and blow the profits on magic cards. On to the last story of the day. That time, my mom upended the dress code for my entire school. When I was little, my mom sent me to a private/religious school. My family isn't religious, but they felt like I'd get a better education there. And when I switched to public school later, I found out they were right. I was pretty far ahead. This school had uniforms. Boys wore button-down shirts with the school logo and blue slacks. Girls wore jumpers. My mom hated cleaning and ironing these white button-down shirts every day. I was one of 4 kids. Kids play and get grass stains. The shirts were taking up a lot of her time. Finally, she gave up and bought a bunch of white polo shirts and started sending us to school in those. Admin had a conniption about it and brought her in for a meeting. They opened the dress code rulebook and pointed out that these shirts were missing the logo, so they were in violation. My mom looked over the rules and confirmed that the lack of a logo was the only violation. They said yes. She thanked them and left. The school probably thought that it was over. Just to be petty, they sent a school-wide memo regarding the dress code. My mom took every polo shirt and stitched a homemade school logo onto them. It wasn't hard to do as the logo was just the school initials. Admin was furious, but during the next meeting realized their hands were tied. The memo piqued the curiosity of other parents, and they started asking my mom where she got the new school shirts. Apparently, she wasn't the only one sick of ironing and getting grass stains out. Suddenly, I wasn't the only one wearing a polo shirt to school. The worst part for the school was that, despite tuition being pretty expensive, they also had a kickback deal going with a local clothing store for the uniforms. The store had a monopoly on the sale of those shirts. When the business started lagging, the store made their own version of the polos for sale. Eventually, the original shirts were phased out entirely. That was over 30 years ago, and my mom still loves telling that story. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and hit that notification bell. Now I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.